Amy was about to live her dream, the perfect marriage. But on the altar, the man she loved left her, with cruel words that destroyed her inside. Abandoned and humiliated before all, she found herself lost. But what seemed to be the end of everything became a new beginning. A month later, the unexpected happens. Amy always believed that true love was unbeatable, able to overcome any barrier, any imperfection. From a young age, she had full confidence that beauty was not in the measures or standards imposed by society, but on the authenticity and inner brightness of each person. Her body was fuller, more curvilinear, but she never cared about it, because she always felt comfortable in her own skin. She was proud of her achievements, the person who had become, and believed she would find a genuine love to accept her completely. Mark was the dream man of any woman. High, successful, with a charming and always attentive smile. They had known each other in college, and after 5 years of dating, the marriage proposal seemed just a formality to seal what seemed to be a perfect future. Amy and Mark were about to take the most important step of their lives: marriage. The date was set, and the city of Chicago was full of expectations for the great celebration. Everything seemed like a fairy tale. She spent the last minutes before the ceremony was getting ready in the dressing room, looking into the mirror and feeling the butterflies in the stomach. The wedding dress, designed to highlight her curves gently, made her feel stunning. Nothing could ruin that moment, she thought. Nothing but a word. The moment arrived and the church doors opened. Amy walked down the hallway, her steps echoing in the big room. His eyes were fixed in Mark, hoping to see the love and joy he was always present in his eyes. But what she found was a disconcerting void. Mark was there, standing, but with a distant expression, as if he was stuck in an inner dilemma. He looked at her for a long moment and then, with a cold, distant tone, said words that they could never imagine that they would come out of his mouth. "Sorry, Amy, but I can't do that. Not anymore. It's not what I imagined. I can't marry you like that." The words fell like stones in Amy's chest, which in an instant he saw the floor open under his feet. The marriage she had dreamed so much became a nightmare. Public humiliation was unbearable. Mark, the man she trusted, left her on the altar before all with a cruel reason. He didn't love her enough because of her appearance. She tried to hold back the tears but couldn't. What started as a fairy tale turned into a royal nightmare. Love, which seemed to be unbreakable, broke before everyone. She was there alone with the wedding dress, her dreams crumbling. But Amy, amid pain and shame, didn't know yet that the end of that story was just beginning. After abandonment on the altar, Amy was lost, but soon began to realize that that suffering would not define her. In the following days, the weight of rejection was unbearable. She couldn't sleep or eat properly. With every look he received, he felt the pain of humiliation. His closest friends tried to comfort her, but Amy was completely immersed in a void, not knowing where to start. In the early days, she locked herself at home. The surrounding city was still spinning, but she felt she was standing in time. Every comment on social networks about her rejection made her sink even more in her suffering. It was fate, she thought. I always knew that true love is not for people like me. But while Mark's words echoed in his mind, something inside her began to change. It was a cold morning of August, a month after the ceremony, that she finally got up from bed. The mirror reflection looked at her with tired and swollen eyes, but there was also something there she had not noticed before. There was strength. There was resilience. She felt like waking up from a nightmare and realized that the floor under her feet still existed, even if for a moment she had doubted it. It was at this moment that she decided that she would no longer be consumed by pain. She needed to start over, not to please Mark or society, but for herself. The first change was simple but significant. It began to take care of itself differently, no more for what others would think, but because it deserved to feel good regardless of any imposed standard. She started practicing yoga, something she always wanted to try, and soon found comfort in postures and meditation. The painting, which had always been his passion, became part of his life again. In her makeshift studio at home, she let creativity flow. Each brush stroke was a form of liberation, a way of putting out pain and turning it into something beautiful. This gave her a sense of control that she felt nothing else. But the greatest gift she was given was her decision not to allow Mark's vision about her body to be more important than her own vision. She came to see her own beauty and strength in ways she couldn't. That's when your life began to change, that an unexpected opportunity appeared. A renowned art gallery was recruiting new curators, and Amy, without hesitation, decided to apply. She knew this could be the step she needed to really start over. It was no longer about proving anything to anyone, but of finally having the space to show the world their true art. Amy, now safer and more empowered, plunged headlong into her new work. The art gallery became a refuge, a place where she could express her deepest feelings without fear of being judged. She was one of the team's youngest curators, but her talent and dedication quickly began to be noted. Each display she organized brought new challenges, but also the recognition of her professional value. Over time, Amy became a known presence in the Chicago art scene. She found new friendships, people who respected her for her authenticity and passion she put in her work. His life, which seemed so meaningless after abandonment at the altar, was now full of new possibilities and challenges. However, part of her still wondered about Mark and the impact he had had on his life. Would it be possible for him to still care about her? The answer arrived in a way that Amy never expected. One afternoon, while she was in the gallery office, she received a message from Mark. Amy's heart hit faster. I didn't know if I should open that message or simply ignore it. But against her own will, she clicked on the notification. The message said, "Amy, do I need to see you? Can we talk?" She looked at the screen for a few minutes, the nervousness taking over. I didn't know what to expect. Was he regretting? But deep down, Amy knew she had already overcome the pain of abandonment. She no longer needed Mark to be happy, but curiosity dominated her. He decided he would find him, not for him, but for herself, to understand what this meeting represented, whether it was an opportunity to close a chapter or just an empty attempt from someone who had not knew what he had even lost. The meeting was scheduled for a coffee in the city. Amy was nervous but determined. Upon entering the scene, he saw Mark sitting on a table with a distant gaze, but with a regret. He seemed vulnerable in a way she didn't see before. When he saw her, he got up quickly, almost as if waiting for that moment. "Amy, I don't know where to start," Mark said, clearly uncomfortable. "I did something horrible, and today I realize how shallow I was. I looked at you, to your body, and thought you weren't enough. I was so stuck in the expectations of others, and didn't realize that what I had was right before me." Amy, for a moment, didn't know what to say. He looked genuinely sorry, but at the same time she remembered the pain she had felt at that altar. She took a deep breath before answering with a calm she herself admired. "Mark, you didn't lose me because I'm fat. You lost me because as much as you try, I didn't really love me. And now I realize that if you didn't see it before, maybe I didn't really see me. I'm more than a body, more than any pattern you have in your mind." He was silent for a moment, the pain of his own visible guilt on his face. "I was an idiot," he said, a broken voice, "and I'm sorry for everything I did." Amy looked at him, and then finally said something she had known all the time. "I forgave you, Mark, but that doesn't change anything. I'm a new person now, and I don't need you to be happy." Amy's decision to move on with her life was not easy. Although the meeting with Mark was important, she knew she still needed to end that chapter definitely. His life was now full of new discoveries and challenges, but also of new friendships that were forming. She realized that while abandonment on the altar had been a wound, it had also been an opportunity to find her own essence again. At work, Amy was received with open arms in the gallery. Her colleagues admired her for her unique artistic view and the way she dealt with the difficulties. With each event she organized, she gained more confidence. His ability to transform his pain into art has become one of his greatest strengths. She used every work of art, every exhibition, as a reflection of what passed inside. When the gallery was preparing for a great exhibition of a renowned artist, Amy was called to coordinate everything, an important step in her career. But the biggest test was coming. During the exhibition organization, Amy met Liam, a renowned photographer who was collaborating with the gallery to capture images of the show. He was different from all the men she had ever known, not only physically but in your approach to life and people. Liam was genuine, interested in what she had to say, in her ideas and dreams. It was someone who made her feel seen in a way she didn't feel since Mark. Liam began to invite her to lunch and conversations, but never forced or invasive. He respected her space and at the same time made her feel comfortable. In one of these meetings, while having coffee in a small bistro in town, he told him, "Amy, you inspire me. The way you have turned pain into something so beautiful. It's rare to find someone with this courage." These words played deeply, Amy, which until then did not imagine that someone could see their pain in such a positive way. She had never knew how to deal with the fact that pain could become art, but Liam had managed to see it on her journey. As his relationship with Liam evolved, the great exposure was approaching, and Amy felt increasing pressure. She had the responsibility to ensure that everything was perfect. The weight of being the main curator of the gallery was huge, but she was determined to show everyone, including herself, she was able. She spent days and nights at work, but always found a moment to find Liam, someone who now became her source of support and tranquility. The exhibition was an absolute success, but what most surprised Amy was the impact her work had on people. The criticism was extremely positive, and she began to be recognized in the artistic environment, not only for her vision, but for the emotional strength she brought to her works. His work was not just an art display, but a reflection of his own transformation. But deep down she knew that the true transformation was not just in professional success. Amy was learning to trust people again, to believe in love in a healthier and more true way, without the strings of the patterns imposed by Mark or society. And although she didn't know what the future reserved, one thing was certain: she was ready to live her own story. The day of Amy's great exhibition finally arrived. The gallery was stunning, with the works arranged carefully along the walls. The event attracted a multitude of illustrious guests from the art world, collectors and critics. Amy, nervous but excited, prepared for a night that could change her career forever. She knew this was the decisive moment of her professional life. However, what she didn't imagine was that fate had something even more surprising prepared for her. As the guests arrived, she received praise and greetings. Liam was by her side, supporting her and admiring her work with a sincere smile. She was more confident than ever, but in the midst of all the excitement, something stopped her in the middle of the hall. A familiar figure appeared at the entrance of the gallery. It was Mark. The shock was immediate. Amy felt a knot in her throat. Mark was there in a suit and tie, looking as elegant as on the day of his failed wedding. But what really made her surprised was Mark's gaze, who, although loaded with regret, seemed to be full of a kind of vulnerability she had never seen before. He approached with caution as if he feared a hostile reaction. "Amy," began, but the words got stuck in his throat. She stared at him, not knowing what to think. The silence between them was heavy. She, who had overcome so much, who was now a new woman, found herself before the man who had abandoned her on the altar, the one who had caused her so much pain. For a moment Mark was there, more vulnerable than she remembered him, as if trying somehow reaching the woman he lost, but never knew how to value. He stepped forward and, with a tremendous voice, continued, "I made a wrong choice, Amy, and I know what words can't erase what happened, but I need you to know that what I did was a mistake. I thought I could find something else, someone else, but now I see how much I hurt you." Amy felt a whirlwind of emotions. The pain of all that moment surfaced, but something about it had changed. She knew what he said was true, but at the same time he no longer wanted to allow the past to control his life. She took a deep breath and firmly replied, "Mark, you didn't lose me because I wasn't enough. You lost me because you didn't see me. You didn't see who I really am. I'm more than a body, and you let me go without realizing it. Today I'm an entire woman, and this woman doesn't need you to feel complete." There was a tense break. Mark seemed to mean more, but something in his gaze showed that he finally understood what Amy was trying to tell her. She was no longer that vulnerable and lost woman. She was now the woman who overcame the pain, who rebuilt from the inside out. I understand," he said with a tone of resignation. "I just hope you are happy." Amy looked at him, and then, with a last exchange of looks, she turned her back to Mark and walked back to Liam. The sense of relief took over her, as if a huge weight had been raised from her shoulders. She was no longer stuck in the past. She was free. That night, the success of the exhibition was marked not only by the public approval, but by the personal fulfillment of Amy. She had known herself, and what she was now carrying within her was a force that no one else could take. After the night of the exhibition, Amy experienced a sense of peace and satisfaction she had never imagined she would feel. The exhibition was a resounding success, but what touched her most was the moment she had with Mark, when she finally broke free from all the weight she carried. She had forgiven herself, and this was more significant than any approval she could receive at the event. It was as if she had taken a decisive step to true freedom. In the following days, Amy continued to be recognized for her work, but the impact that the exhibition had on her personal life was even deeper. She was more centered, more aligned with who she really was. Recognition of his art, coupled with renewed trust in herself, began to open new doors. She was invited to several new collaborations and exhibitions, and soon became one of the most sought-after curators of Chicago. But what really made her smile every day was to know that, more than her professional success, she had finally found a balance between what she was, what she wanted, and what she deserved. His relationship with Liam was also evolving naturally. He respected her in a way that Amy had never experienced before. He admired her for her courage and strength, but also made her feel loved by who she was, without pressures or expectations. They began to spend more time together, finding out what meant being with someone who accepted her and saw her completely. Liam, with her sensitivity and kindness, was the key for Amy to finally embrace love without the barriers she had erected for years. But not everything was so simple. Amy's past, despite being overcome, still affected her in times of insecurity. Whenever she saw herself in an important situation, a question appeared, a shadow of what she had lived with Mark. Was she really ready to open her heart to someone again? What if the fear of rejection came back? These were the ghosts she still carried, and although she was working to get rid of them, the way to complete confidence in herself and in others, it wasn't easy. On a Sunday afternoon, while Liam took her for a walk in the park, Amy had a moment of introspection. They were sitting on a bench looking at the quiet lake ahead when he touched his hand and, with a soft smile, said, "Amy, you've given you so much to others in your work. Now let yourself give yourself. What are you expecting from all the others? You already have inside you." These words made Amy reflect deeply. She knew she had found a lot of herself in the process of overcoming, but she was not yet totally free from fear and insecurity. It was still difficult to set aside the memories of betrayal, judgment, and rejection, but Liam was right. She was already complete, and her happiness didn't depend on anyone's validation. It was then that, for the first time, she really believed in the words she had told Mark. She was enough, and she knew that if love ever came to her life again, he would come as a bonus, and not as a necessity. Love for itself was the base, and everything else would be a consequence of this inner force. Amy's life continued to change surprisingly. Each day it was a new chance for her to learn something new about herself and the world around her. She was finally living according to the standards she had created herself, regardless of the expectations of others. Her work in the gallery was thriving, and she had become a reference in the Chicago art scene. But what most filled her was the way she dealt with her personal life. The relationship with Liam was a reflection of this change. Amy realized that over the years she had never allowed herself to love fully. She surrendered to the love of others, but never to her own. She had spent so much time trying to fit into the standards of what others wanted her to be, that she lost sight of what meant being happy with her own company. With Liam, things were different. He did not press her to be someone else, and he loved her not only for her qualities, but also for her imperfections. He made her feel viewed in a way she never imagined being possible. However, Amy knew she needed to continue her journey alone. As much as Liam's love was important, he was a chapter of her life, but she no longer wanted to depend on him or anyone else to feel complete. That's when she decided to take an even greater step, participate in an international art exhibition in Paris. This opportunity was the biggest challenge of your career so far. It was a chance to show the world his talent, but also to prove herself that she was ready to win anything she proposed. Although the idea of leaving Chicago and venturing alone was frightening, she knew this experience would help her grow even more. Before leaving, she talked to Liam, and with a soft smile, he supported her unconditionally. "You were always stronger than you thought, Amy. Go. Do it for yourself." The fear and insecurity that still accompany her began to disappear as she prepared for this new stage. She had overcome so many adversities and was now ready to make the biggest leap of her life. Art, which has always been its refuge, was now its path of growth and freedom. In Paris, the exhibition was a resounding success. Amy was applauded by her unique vision and the courage to show her art so authentically. But more than any applause, what touched her deeply was the feeling of self-sufficiency. She was finally doing everything for herself. The experience of traveling to Paris was not only a professional achievement, but also a personal journey. Amy met in a way she had never imagined before. She was finally living her own life without worrying about the judgment of others, without submitting to anyone's standards. It was there in the city of Luz that she really understood what meant being at peace with herself. It didn't matter what Mark or anyone else to think of her anymore. She was her own source of strength and happiness. And when looking at the future, Amy knew that anything she wanted to conquer was within her reach. Not only had it overcome adversities, but now it was ready to grow even more, not because it needed, but because it deserved it. Amy returned from Paris with a renewed soul. Her career was more solid than ever, and her personal confidence reached levels that she had never imagined being possible. But with all the professional success, a part of her felt that something was still missing, a complete closure with her past. The reunion with Mark at the gallery event had been a turning point, but Amy knew that this meeting, although important, did not yet represent the end of her emotional journey. She still carried the echoes of betrayal, public rejection, and as much as she had found an internal peace, there was something she needed to solve so that she could, in fact, move on without looking back. It was a quiet autumn afternoon as he walked through the park near his house that Amy had the revelation she was waiting for. The fresh wind caressed his face, and the dry leaves danced around him. The peace of the moment made her realize that her past with Mark was not something she would need to heal or forget. What she needed to do was simply accept that he was part of her story, and that without him she would not have come where she was now. It was time to confront this, once and for all. She decided that she would find him again, not to remember the past or seek answers, but to make it clear that he was part of his story, but no longer of his present. She knew this would not be easy, but she also knew it was necessary. Amy wanted to get out of this chapter of her life with the certainty that there was no more room for grudge or hurt. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. Amy was nervous, not because of the possibility of resetting, but because of the need to finally break free of what the past represented. She wanted that conversation to be the last time she would have to look back so that she could finally live without any shadow of regret or doubt. Liam supported her totally, knowing that this moment was essential for Amy to move on completely. "I'll be here, as always," he said. "But more important than that, I know you already have everything you need inside you." The day has finally arrived. Amy was standing in the small cafeteria where she would meet Mark. Anxiety was in the air, but she felt calmer than she had ever imagined. He looked at the clock and saw that he was almost coming. The place was quiet, with the soft light of the late afternoon entering the large windows. But inside, her heart was hitting hard. The last piece of his past was about to be placed in his place. Mark came in and she saw him instantly. The same look, the same posture, but there was something different in him. A fragility she didn't see before. He looked nervous, but it also seemed to be someone who already knew his time had passed. Amy smiled slightly and gestured for him to sit. She was prepared more than ever. There was no grudge or resentment, just a desire to solve things so that they could finally move on. Mark looked at her with a look loaded with regret. "Amy, I don't even know where to start. I don't know if you can still hear me after everything I did to you." Amy took a deep breath, looking at him with surprising calm. "I heard your words the day I left me on the altar, Mark. I have heard everything I needed to hear from you." She paused, feeling a wave of relief spread through her body. "What I want now is that you understand that there is nothing more to say between us. Not because I don't care, but because I forgave myself. I already moved on." Mark looked like shock. He looked at her with teary eyes as if he didn't have enough words to express his pain. "I hurt you so much," he said, almost in a whisper. "And now I see how much you evolved, how much you have become. I never imagined you would be able to be happy without you." Amy completed the phrase with a soft smile. "I needed a time to find myself, Mark. I lost myself for a long time trying to fit into what others expected from me. But now, I know who I am. I love myself, and that's what matters." Mark was silent, visibly played. What he felt for her seemed to be a mixture of remorse and admiration. But the truth is that he finally understood. He lost her because she couldn't see what she really was. But Amy, with her strength and courage, had already taken the most important step. She broke free, and with that, she was whole again. "Amy, I never wanted to hurt you," said Mark, his eyes low, full of regret. "I thought I was looking for something perfect, but now I see that perfection was in what I had and lost." She looked at him without anger, but with a clear sense that this moment was the last piece of the puzzle. "I know, Mark, and I know you are also trying to find your own way. But our way is no longer the same. I no longer need your approval or forgiveness to be happy. I am already." With these words, Amy got up slowly, taking her bag. Mark watched her, not knowing what to say, but in her eyes she saw something she had never imagined. He was letting go. He knew it was time for her to follow, and he, in turn, would have to learn to live with the choices he had made. Amy left the coffee shop with a quiet smile on her face. She didn't look back. The weight she carried for so long had finally been left behind. Forgiveness, acceptance, and the peace she felt depended on nothing more that Mark could say or do. It was an internal victory. Amy's journey, which began with the pain of abandonment, has now culminated in her own freedom. She had surpassed the past, and now the future was in front of her, open, without limitations. Amy knew that when moving on, love would no longer be a burden, but a genuine choice, built with respect for itself. After meeting with Mark, Amy felt a sense of lightness like never before. She knew that this chapter had definitely closed. There were no doubt, no regrets. What was left was just the gratitude for the self-discovery journey she had lived, for all she had overcome, for all she had become. The exhibition in Paris had been just a milestone. Amy was no longer just standing out professionally. She was finally living the life that always deserved. Her days were filled with art, new projects, and the company of the people who respected and admired her. But more importantly, she was surrounded by people who saw her as she really was, and especially she saw her that way. Liam, who has always been by her side with patience and support, now became more than a partner. He was the reflection of the true trust and love that Amy had conquered within him. Together they explored what true love meant, without pressures, without external expectations, just being to each other. But it wasn't just the others who were starting to notice the change in Amy. Herself, looking back, no longer recognized how the insecure and hurt woman once was. She was stronger, more aware of who she was, grateful for the battles she fought. Her journey, which had started with pain, now became a story of courage, overcoming, and renewal. Amy knew the future still had challenges, but for the first time she was ready to face them with her head up. She knew she didn't need anyone's approval to be happy. Love was no longer a necessity, but a choice, and she would choose the love that came from within herself every day. Over time, she realized that the greatest gift that could give herself was neither success nor the recognition of others, but the right to be happy in her own skin. She had finally learned to love herself, and that made her more powerful than anything she had ever imagined. Amy was standing by the lake, the sun setting on the horizon and painting the sky with gold and pink tones. She watched the quiet waters, feeling a deep peace she had never imagined to achieve. The way there was long and challenged, but finally, she was in a place where she could look to the future with hope and confidence. Liam appeared beside him, smiling softly, and wrapped her in a hug. It was not a farewell hug, but of complicity and understanding. He knew that for Amy the journey was just beginning, but he also knew she was prepared for everything fate had reserved. "You got it," he said with a soft but meaningful voice. Amy smiled, touching her face. "Yes, I got it. And most importantly, I found the person I should have been all the time." And there, in the tranquility of the moment, Amy knew she had overcome not only the pain of the past but also to herself. She was ready to write the next chapters of her life, and for the first time without fear of what would come. The inner peace she had conquered made her stronger than anything the world could throw in her way. Amy's journey is a powerful reminder that even in the face of the greatest adversity, there is always an opportunity to rise and find strength within ourselves. If you have also faced difficulties, challenges, or moments of pain, remember, true transformation begins when we decide to love and accept as we are. Share your own overcoming story in the comments and inspire others to believe that you can always start over. Let us together create a space of support and strength where everyone can find the courage to move on. No matter where you are now, what matters is where you decide to go. Let's continue this journey of self-discovery and growth. What are you waiting for to take the next step?